welcome. Pink Cloud Radio 74. And back again to this whole thing. Really, it is about having an open mind and child eyes and being the Death King. But it's the victimless crime, really. When you think about victimless crimes, all of you, I don't know if any of you have ever thought of victimless crimes, but there's a ton. There is a ton, really. Think about it. Protesters getting arrested, people at times will just say, make fun of it. Say, ha, those people, they got arrested for, just protesting. They should have known better. There's one of my favorites. You should have known better. But this is the thing about statism. Statism and the easy way out to arrest. Hurt with violence, non-violent people. It's true, it's a nice ideal to believe that, those people will stand up and be violent. But it only happens after the police start contradicting the protections that they're trying to have for us as individuals. But the ones that go over it are the corporations and banks and the things around us. So they protect the laws of the institutions other than the laws of the people in general. If they're being, stood up to or being cheated on by the people who are in power, it doesn't matter. You still protect the laws and borders and the guidelines and the territories of where the institutions are, more than you would the people that are, rising up against it in some form or another. At the same time, it goes with what most people would say, oh no, people just go out and just try to cause problems. To be fair, most people don't even step out of their houses. I don't know where you get that idea, that people will actually step out of their houses. I don't even step out of my house, and I'm one of those people who is actually very empathetic with myself. But it's hard to be empathetic with the world if they don't care enough for themselves. It is, I try, and I'm going to keep trying. But it's not going to mean anything until you are. And it truly won't. It won't mean a single piece of shit until you want to be empathetic with yourself. Because it doesn't mean you're not going to be empathetic with others. In fact, it actually helps that. It won't make you bitter about wanting to help people. You'll actually want to help people and not expect anything in return. And if you help people without the empathy, you're going to want something in return. Or you're going to be very upset and treat everything based on the experiences you've had, rather than the experience you have with yourself, empathetically. While rapists and murderers get away, who actually is in prison, guilty or innocent. So with these victimless crimes that are happening with protesters and whatever you want to call it, people that actually don't do anything, who are actually in prison? Who are the guilty or innocent in prison? Or are people that don't matter in prison? Because in truly honest terms, we're getting to a point where people in power need to have us be in fear. That in itself shows the guideline right there. If that needs to be there, then that means that there's a tyrannical government on top of us. That's proven. Because if you need people to be in fear, doubt, or hope, there you go. That means that we have a tyrannical government. That means we don't have something that is free. Supposedly. We could label any other country we want to. We could label Russia communist like we did, which they weren't actually. They used communist values, but they weren't actually all communist. In fact, most of it was the same exact system we are. Because it was based on capitalism and killing off the competition. That's how it started. They didn't create that system based on just communism. They actually used a ton of different ones and created the issues right there because they took power of everything. They shut down everything where people could have a voice, where people could have their work and everything. They shut it all down. Not to say they were right, not to say they were right to have whatever system they want, but they're the ones who are going to have to deal with it. The people there have to deal with it. None of us can. That's what I never got about, especially what's happened now recently. What happened in Egypt recently. You had President Obama saying that, he was the voice of reason by saying, the people, the military and government shouldn't be doing that to the people, but still funding them to do it. So he's the voice of reason, but he's not the action of reason. He's just the voice of reason, and everybody's okay with that, Well, at least he's saying something good. He's not doing anything good by not stopping that money that he's sending there, because we need that, we got to have some kind of control there. So even if it's murder and control of any kind of people there, it doesn't matter. Just like Turkey. It doesn't matter if it's murder and control as long as it's controlled. Well, that's tyranny, right? That's tyranny right there. That's what it is. There's nothing else. You know, we could try to label it something else, but it's based on the voice alone. It's the old idea. Actions speak louder than words. And to be fair, it always will. It always will. Because you're killing people, your words mean nothing. You're still killing those people. Duh. That's a victimless crime right there, though. Well, to the government it is. See, they get away with it, and so on and so forth. But it's not just as easy as saying it's just the government. You know, the military-industrial complex, Federal Reserve Bank, which is actually not part of the United States. So it doesn't go by the laws and regulations that the rest of the United States has to, which is just an institution, technically. If you look at the copyright, it's already copywritten, incorporated United States, so it's an incorporated business. So technically we don't matter, the business matters. That's what happened after the Civil War ended. Everything was incorporated. So at that point, human beings don't matter. So either you accept our racism, or you accept that you're going to all be slaves. That's what happened, really. It was basically, we're either going to point the gun at them, or we're going to point the gun at all of you. There was no in between, you know, and that proves right there, what's the bigger evil? You know, when people say that, what's the bigger evil? You know, well, I got the lesser two evils right there. Wow, you're happy with that? You really don't think there's other choices out there? Why am I alive? Because there is other choices out there. But people don't want those choices because people don't want to step out of that bubble. That bubble right there is going to pop. But it doesn't matter because we wait for that bubble to pop. That's why democracies have failed so much. Because people waited to see if it would succeed. Whether it's a glutton for punishment, right there and then is the proof. The victimless crimes, a ton of people are getting arrested for that stuff. Why? Because they speak out against our government. Because they speak out against the lies. You know, it's like looking at The Exorcist. I think of it like that. Where Father Marin was saying right before he did the exorcism to the other father, where they were talking about it, and he was saying, don't listen to the demon. Right there. Once you listen to the demon, you're falling into its game. You're falling into its mix of lies and truth. Do you really want to be in that game? Do you really want to be in that kind of foxhole? Because that's what you're in. You're not in anything better in life. You're just continuing a cycle. You're helping someone else continue a cycle too. In a lot of ways, that's why I got rid of some friends, myself personally, because I had to. I had no choice, because I didn't want to continue a cycle in that way. I saw the kind of bullshit they wanted to put themselves through. And they wanted to throw it at me, of course. Because they didn't, you know, when people deal with their own bullshit, they don't just want to deal with it, you know. They want to put it on somebody else because they don't want to actually fix their problems. They want to actually find a solution and then fix the problem. They don't want to actually look at the problem and, you know, fight it. They want to actually use a solution over here and push it to the problem and say, that'll fix it. And just try each one. See until it fixes. But that's not how you solve problems. That's how a lot of people solve problems, of course. Arrest the protesters, you know. Stop the voices of truth. Because, you know, now I'm not saying that it's 100% true because we don't know the truths. Our government has kept secrets. You know, if that doesn't bother you about a government, what will? You know, it's true. If secrets in our government doesn't bother you, and you're okay with that, then right there and then you're proving how much you'll saddle back and accept what they're going to do to you. Because you don't know exactly if they are doing anything to you. Because they have a lot of secrets. And they've disregarded a lot of their rules and regulations and actually got off scot-free in many ways because they can create any laws, rules, or regulations to speak for themselves more. And they can buy up the lobbyists to do that. That's all you need is the money. Until you don't have money to use as a scapegoat to get to the means to the end, you're always going to have that kind of result. The perpetual cycle is always going to come back to you until you decide to let it end. But that's hard for people to do because, as usual, it goes back to rapists and murderers get away. Well, as long as you can get away with criminal activity, people are okay with that. At least they could do something bad. And that's fine. As long as they can do something bad, they're good. You know, everybody's good. Because as long as they can get one way out, they're fine. It's just like looking at gangs and mobs. You know, the old mob bosses, the gangs that are around now, supposedly. Although I feel more of a gang intimidation mentality from the actual police and everybody in these powerful positions that are owned and operated, just as much as me, technically, if you kind of think about it, are actually more of a problem than any of those things. Those things can die away. You know, gangs weren't around when, you know, you had cavemen. They weren't like, yo, we're the North cavemen, we're the South cavemen. There wasn't anything like that. But it's nice for us to believe that we've actually civilized. Because technically they were more civilized than us. And I think that's the issue. A lot of people don't want to see that. They don't want to have to say to themselves that they did something wrong. Or that the people in positions that they agree with, that they listen to, are lying, are mixing the lies and the truth. And are not actually telling them everything. So they instantaneously just protect that. You know, it's like falling back to your, you know, mama and daddy. You know, saying that that's your mama and daddy over there. It's a victimless crime. Who cares if they put protesters in jail? Well, of course, who cares? But do you care if they actually don't put rapists and murderers in jail because they actually just go after protesters? Because this just pays their salary check? Of course, they're not going to talk about that. Because then you're going to actually pay attention, possibly. And, you know, or just say, no, they're lying about that. You know, deny it. It's the old idea, you know. Denial is the, you know, it's the first answer to everything. It's the first answer to what you believe. You know, what's the skewered thing that destroys our mentalities usually? It's that we use belief, hope, fear, and doubt to struggle with everything. Instead of actually just dealing with it, we just want to struggle with it. You know, and that's one of the things that I see in statism, which is what we live in. We live in statist societies. That's what we live in right now. These are states, 52 or whatever. It doesn't matter the number. It matters the structure. And the structure is never good because the statist tree ends up being the same kind of statist tree. So who's in jail? Guilty or innocent? Well, it matters what you see it as. If you see people guilty of, you know, protesting or speaking out or doing violence on something that isn't actually helping anybody, then I guess that's guilty. Although, personally, I wouldn't see it that way. Because a lot of people would try to say, you know, flank it and say that, well, you know, I just work here. Is that necessarily true? How do we know that person doesn't cheat people all the time? They're working for the same fraud economic stock market that everybody else does. That manipulates society. So when the central banking and all these people say they're not hurting people, why should we believe that? They control everything. They caused the Great Depression, the Federal Reserve, by calling in their debt. And the banks had to shut down. But see, right there, then the banks are using it against us. Because they're not in control of the money. They ask us for more money. So right there and then, the tool to the oppressor makes another person the oppressor below that. And makes another person the oppressor below that. So now, not only do we have this problem, but until we basically vanquish the idea of oppressing people just because we were oppressed, we're never going to get anywhere. And that's the struggle that's always going to happen now. Because we've now made a threat everything. So now it's the whole idea of, well, I've been cheated, now I'm going to cheat people myself. Oh, good luck with that, you know. I wish you the best, but I won't be talking to you ever again because it's pretty useless. And it is pretty useless because it's a very vanquished conversation. You don't want to treat everybody like a human, obviously. You want to treat them as if, you know, I cheated you, myself personally, right here. Good luck with that, you know. I can't stand up for your past. If you dealt with something where somebody cheated on you, hey, I was cheated by a company way back when I tried to go into acting when I was very young. The Actors Studio, Beverly Hills. Guess what? I have no revenge in mind. Because personally, they were unkind because they wanted to do it that way. They wanted to bring people in and bring people to the trust. Well, you're going to do the same exact thing to them? You're not going to actually bring something better for the world? Hey, it's up to you. If you want to do the exact same thing, then clone it. Have a good life, you know. No wonder people are going to hurt people again and again because they continually can't stop looking at what happened to them. the bitterness, the revenge, the bullying. It's an onslaught. Where do you think you learn it? From school. What do you think you end with it? Death. You don't end with anything else. You don't end in a better world by actually getting revenge and cheating people because you were cheated. You know, you're not going to have a better world with that. It's a nice ideal, but that's not how you do it. It's the whole idea of the lesser two evils. Well, if the lesser two evils is you screwing people over because you were screwed over, let me go with the bigger evil. I'd rather have that. I'd rather have the people that oppressed you just be in power completely, because at least you'll shut your fucking mouth. It's kind of true there, but I personally don't like any of those choices, because I don't think there's only two choices. I don't think there's only two sides. I don't think it's only less evil or more evil. Once you pick evil at all, it's dead. You've killed the society. You've killed everything. You've killed every single thing that could happen in this world because you chose evil at all. You've allowed evil at all. You know, it's like The Exorcist right there, as I said. Do not listen. Boom. That's all. Boom. Do not listen. But if you want to listen, totally up to you. But you're going to pick up on the lies and truths that you want to. Just like the one in control wants you to believe. You know, I'm learning to not be comfortable with discomfort and to let go. I'm in the process of unlearning destructive habits and thinking in order to cultivate room for growth. Not to force openness, but welcome the letting go of narrowness. Trying to not find peace and calmness in things. To not be afraid of not being ready. And to not be afraid of being overly ready or more ready than the people around me and the environment. Jax said that to me. I like it. I think it makes sense, because I don't know if being uncomfortable is the problem. I don't think not being comfortable or not being uncomfortable, whichever way you choose to be, is the whichever way you choose to be. See, that's the thing about significance of feeling special. It doesn't mean that somebody's just uncomfortable or comfortable around you. It doesn't mean that you have to unlearn destructive habits. If someone truly cares about you, none of your habits are destructive. And not even for yourself are they destructive. If you truly care about yourself, you wouldn't put yourself in a position to completely get yourself into a destructive habit. Now, I'm not saying that you wouldn't have destructive habits. We all do. Mine jumping around running every day. That's a very destructive habit, because pretty much you kill yourself with too much energy. But it doesn't mean you kill yourself, you just do it. You don't have anything else. You know, I don't have a broken spine, but I don't know exactly what to do. If I am wasting time doing it, then I'm wasting time doing it. But I don't think I am. It doesn't feel like a waste. And thinking in order to cultivate room for growth. Well, thinking itself is room for growth. You know, if you don't want to think, then there's no room for growth. There isn't. You know, there isn't any room for growth if, you know, you're not going to think. You know, and especially if you put down the thought, if somebody, well, you think too much, you got to create the action. Not necessarily true. The action will come if you truly have a thought that matters to you, meaning that you'll make it matter, not with an action, but with what you react to it as. If it's something important, it's going to stay with you, just like the Death King. I'm not afraid of love, therefore I'm not afraid of death. Well, there you go. That's it. That's all I need to say. Because right there, it proves that I am willing to go all the way. Doesn't mean anything, I'm willing to say. But that doesn't mean anything until it means something to you. I'm not talking about means something to you like, oh, this person did it for me personally. No, I did it for everybody. But it's only going to matter to like one or two people, you know, meaning that maybe family will see it matter, maybe other people will see it matter, maybe not. But it could come from anybody, and it can't come from everybody. Meaning that it could come from anybody. It doesn't mean it will, and it doesn't mean, you know, I'll see it in front of my eyes. Sometimes people do it in back of you, and they respect you and go, you know, I admire that guy. Oh, geez, admiration, good. Don't tell it to me, please. I don't want to hear this admiration stuff. Because that's a problem. You know, you're holding me up. Please put me down. Okay, now don't put me down under the ground, but just put me down at all. You know? Just put me down so I could just walk. You know, and it's the whole thing that I talked about with Rena's mom at one time at McDonald's when I was talking about appreciating people even if they don't appreciate it. And this comes with a very personal, close price. People can lie all they want about the outside picture, and people always do. Looking within and seeing things, like within a family unit, for example. You can have a lot of people say like, oh, well, that person gets close to their mom or gets close to their grandmother, for example, my mamina, and they automatically assume, oh, that person must agree with them. Nope, we can get along with people, like to or not, because it's a beautiful sun. That's it. You don't need much else. That's what I agree with one of my friends at school had said before, that anybody can be with anybody. I agree. It doesn't mean I want to be with anybody, and truly I don't. I can't be with just anybody because right there, you pay the price. I gotta be with somebody that truly loves the art that I do. Not like loves the same artist. No. The art that I do. Meaning that this art matters to them in some form. It doesn't mean necessarily that my writing matters to them or my personal endeavor in doing it matters, but that I do it at all. That I do it at all. It matters. And I think that's the flaw that most people don't want to look at. They don't want to look at that part. They want to skew it as a scientific method, as a psychiatry sort of form, or a pharmaceutical, medical form. Forget all that. Sorry. You have to unlearn science. That's the problem. Because most scientific methods don't lead to a conclusion, even though most people say they do. This is the answer. Somehow that answer has been skewered in every direction every single time that happens, though. That it's not always 100%. And that you have to kind of accept that, whether you like to or not. I mean, we've so been endeavored to believe it like a hammer and anvil. Hammer and nail, but you gotta stop. You gotta stop hammering once in a while. Figure out that sometimes that nail doesn't fit. You got the nail in the coffin. No, you're just laughing and making fun of what you don't want to believe. Not to force openness, but welcome to letting go of narrowness. True, I agree with that. Because you shouldn't force openness. That's a definite truth. Because once you force openness, sometimes you could just go back narrow. Narrow as an arrow. And you'll just shoot off that dark arrow and whoosh, there you go. You're going to kill the same thing that you tried to open. It's true. It's sadly true because sometimes people force it too much where it's like, come on, please. Yeah, just letting go of narrowness. Yeah, that's true. I don't know if you need to necessarily let go of narrowness because sometimes narrowness helps you too. It helps. Honestly, I don't like saying it this way, but when you narrow yourself down, it's the only way you can search and do things. Being lost in the middle of nowhere, it has its great line of narrowness, which is that you can only walk a straight line and then curve and then curve and then curve, but you have to walk that straight line again because you have to get to those positions where you curve. Because you won't curve unless you go straight too. And it's not about geometry, but it can be. I took geometry, I understand it in a certain form or another. I wouldn't know it off the top of my head, but if I studied my books, I could pass a good test, I think. If I studied in a good way, if I took a few questions at a time, either the odds or the evens for each section, the usual routine they give you. But it's not bad. If you take the time, you can do it. And trying to not find peace and calmness in things. True. Because you should have peace within everything. You shouldn't just try to look for peace. You should have it. There you go. Because it shouldn't be in things. It should always be in you. That's what matters most. Because then the calmness isn't about what's around you. It's about what's in you. It's the same idea of looking at it in that... Look at The Exorcist Part 2. I know I'm bringing up the series. Sorry, guys. And girls. But I'm bringing up the series because Exorcist 2 was a huge impact on that. Although most people hated it, no denial. I liked it, but I liked it because it actually is probably one of the only films that has hit on something pretty direct. In that if you're good, bad things will happen to you. And not in that bad way of like bad things will happen to you, but bad things will follow you and try to do things to you. The way it shows it is very different from what you would see as like, oh, no good deed goes unpunished. It's not about that. It's more about being good and being attacked for it and being attacked with it. Being attacked with that good. Well, why? Well, because the negative is not going to just say, let that survive. But yet it did happen in our history too. And that's the question that I have, curiously enough, is that if our history started so negative with Native Americans, Columbus, everything that happened with the rapes, and the way Columbus and all of them talked about natives, and the Mexicans too. When you have that kind of assimilation of a beast in thought, it doesn't just go away. It doesn't just assimilate and say, well, we'll disappear now. That doesn't just happen. The creation of that came from that. The creation of what you could take the power from. If it matters so much to take that power, it doesn't just go away. People don't just go, we changed our minds. We don't want this power anymore. If that was true, well, pretty much, America wouldn't be here. America wouldn't even existed because people would have said, we don't want to do this anymore. But that never happened. I'm still standing right here on top of the earth of where stood once Native Americans, Mexicans, whatever. Whatever it was people. They were never forgiven. We always think, the people in power think of them the same way they did back then. It's a nice picture frame to think that they don't. But that never changed. The same people that continually came down the rapid chain of those people are continually in office, are continually in powers. Because you can't combine powers with somebody who actually wants to do good. It's a reckless engine. I'll definitely agree with you there. It's a reckless engine. It doesn't mean it's going to work. But, you know what? A lot of people try to disguise it. And they always try to. They always try to lie about it and say, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. You got to give them a nice image to work with. To not be afraid of not being ready, and to not be afraid of being overly ready, or more ready than the people around me and the environment. True. I don't think it's necessarily you have to be ready for anything, though. Prepared, even. You don't even need to be prepared. Honestly, it has to do with willpower, passion. It's truly what you want in it. It's truly what you want. And it'll matter to the other person, too. It's not going to be only you. See, that's the thing about what Jax said right there, being ready. Being overly ready, being underly ready, whatever. No, I'm just kidding. But it's that kind of like focus on it. Like, do you really think it's only going to be you? If it is, then you know why it's not going to last. You know why it's not going to work. You can't be the only one here. Whether we're all connected, that's great too. I think we are. But I think it's even deeper than that, in that the solution can never come from one person, because obviously you have to deal with that problem. The solution may come from other people, and that's great too. But dealing with the problem comes from you. It doesn't come from, hey, this is going to be my next boyfriend or my next girlfriend. Let them solve this for me. Hey, can you help me out with this? Jesus, I think I'll be leaving right now. I think I'll go spend time at church now, lady. Just kidding. But I mean, as a joke, I'm just saying that, I'd rather do that. It's not like I have anything against going to church or things like that. I just think there's an alchemist of what I create now. It's not. I can't just walk in there anymore. I can sit in there, I can feel in there, but it's hard to just walk in there and sit in there and see the subfusion of everything, the way everybody just directs their energy or doesn't, and wants something else, wants somebody else, wants some kind of other force to guide it. But you're the force. Use the force, but it's your force. It's not like even Star Wars. There's no force around you. You're the force, and you have to use it. For so many people on earth, they hate much contradictions, but make up enough and say all their own pretty easily, to just get annoyed as fast by someone else's. I thought about that, the contradictions people have, because an incident occurred recently, and I thought about it was just mostly just the way somebody reacted to something. And it was kind of like he was almost across the street. And I wasn't really slowing down, but he was basically right there at the, at the other side already. So I was like, oh, okay, I could go through because there was nobody else. And he had this look, like the sourpuss look, as if he would do that to somebody if they were passing them, like that. So when I saw that, I was like, contradiction. But that wasn't a dream, actually, so that's the thing about that, But it's something that I really do think about. It felt so real, honestly. But it wasn't a dream. But it really made me think about it. How people really create contradictions, but what they like putting those contradictions on somebody else when it happens to them or when they do it. So instead of, putting themselves out there and eliminating the object of suspicion, they put suspicion on everybody else because they don't want to deal with what repercussions they would have to deal with if they took stand. And I think that's the problem too, is that contradictions are a cause of huge issues in the world. That's why nothing gets fixed, because if you use contradictions, that means that you're going to use it against other people. And that means that you're not going to deal with your own contradictions because you're always going to point out everybody else's, especially if you have your own. But especially if those contradictions that somebody else does wasn't a contradiction at all. They'll say it was. They continually object to you saying, no, it's not a contradiction. I didn't do anything else before that. And so right there, they'll just keep blaming you because they'll make up stories. There you go. That's how you get a job now. That's how you get life now in this world. Is lying through your teeth in interviews and everything else. Telling the truth? No thanks. You're not going to get the job, Marcella, for doing that. I've been doing that for years. Hasn't worked yet. It worked at McDonald's, and thankfully it was because I started naming movies that I love. Weirdly enough. At that time, those are the movies I loved. Now, a little more grown up, a little more different. Different movies I enjoy now, too. But I think that's what really is this contradiction thing that I'm talking about. When you talk about contradictions, it's more like what you really see out there. But that's the thing about contradictions. Like I said, for so many on the earth, they hate much contradictions. They hate them. But they do them all the time. They do them every time. They could hate them all they want, but they still do them. And that's a contradiction in itself. That's the old hypocrite and contradiction. Tie it into one, tie it in a feather. But they were taught it, To be fair, everybody was taught these things. It's just like the whole idea of having doubt and subliminal messages, like through The Simpsons, for example. Growing up with that, I saw that. It didn't make me doubt the suspicion. It actually made me doubt the fact that it was that lessened. It wasn't that evil. I thought it was worse than that still. I think I still do. I think anything that I possibly have found out is not enough to even show what is truly going on. I wish it was, I wish I could say I picked the lesser two evils, but I don't think the lesser two evils is in power at all. I think the biggest evil is in power, and they're all working together, even with the people that are supposedly good. That's all. I'm the last vestige of what is hanging off the edge of this map that this world has created. There's nothing else left of it. There's nothing else left for me. This is a desert. Desert of the real. Because there's nothing else left for people like me who actually care. Who aren't doing it to make everybody else feel bad. But everybody else feels bad because I actually care. Hey, don't make me look bad. I'm sorry, I actually care, I'm not doing it to make you look bad. I'm just doing it because I actually care. I'm not going to change my personality for you. Or any of you out there. You have a great life with that. All of you out there that are doing this for propaganda, for money, for anything else, for merchandise. My only merchandise is the heart, and the emotions, and the positivity. And, without being lucrative, looking at the fact that every week is a shark week in this world. Every week. If you don't want to see it that way, that means you are the worst shark. That you're biting the worst. You're probably the big shark that, supposedly is extinct. But really, you're just living like that shark. Marcello, on the other hand, does not. I have passion and I'm boiling hot, but it doesn't mean I'm going to hurt you a lot. I won't hurt you at all. I won't be shallow. But I'll see your material substance crawl through the innocence of your words. Because as Sid, the voice of reason is just words in your head. You're better off dead. Because you got to show it in life. You can't just say it. And people will accept a highly repressive society as long as they are told beforehand where that repressiveness will take place. There you go. So as long as you're told beforehand, everybody will accept the oppressiveness. The oppressiveness, the repressiveness, no problem. No problem. I mean, that's why it happened in the 40s and 50s to be like, we can't talk about sex, we can't talk about pregnancy. There are certain things we can't term, But once you start that doesn't just end. It's nice that we can believe that it just ended after, people were more open. You had the rated, triple X theaters in the 70s. You had a lot of stuff moving out. Whew. And then that's all gone. Because it is repressive. But it's repressive in a very different way. It's repressive in the term of where we live socially. That's all now. What's worse? I would rather live in that degradation than live in this socially inept society now. I can't deal with this interaction anymore. I can't deal with that. I can't. And there you go. Well, I would rather live in a society where it was just about talking about sex than a society that doesn't talk at all. That's all. That's all I'm going to say. Because to truly be honest with you, I got nothing else to offer you guys. Any of you out there, guys and gals, everybody out loud. I got nothing else to offer you. I could write a poem. Here you go. I write one every day. Sometimes take a day or two off, and I'm like, okay, I feel better today because, I took a little day off about it so I could get some more intricities in my head. And it worked. Here's another poem. I try to read. I can't read every day because somehow this world is just ineptly pushing and pulling and everything else, and I'm in between, working like a machine. But at least I'm not a machine. That's all I can say. At least I'm able to feel these feelings, these emotions, these sensitivities, have instincts, have guts. At least I have all that. Not using it for anything, except this. So I hope you enjoy it, because this is all it is. It'd be great if it was something more. It'd be great if it was something that mattered, but it's not going to matter until you make it matter. For yourself. Then you use it for yourself and just do it. See where it leads you. Don't need anybody else to bring it to you. And that's the thing about a repressive society. The fact is, people did accept it before, so when people broke away from those things, they think they broke away from a repressive society. You didn't. You didn't break away from a repressive society just because you started talking about sex, because you're back to not talking about sex. Or you're back to completely going, outreaching, and not doing anything with it. So there you go. You didn't get anything from actually beating that repressiveness to the ground. It's the same thing with what has happened with the repressiveness with blacks, African Americans. You may have gotten one step, but everybody's been treated like shit now. Is that better? Are you happy? Bet you're not. But that's what's going to happen now. Money is not going to take that away. Everybody says we should raise the wages. That's not going to take away how you're treated. In fact, that's going to make it worse, because now less people are going to be working for you. Because they're not going to want to pay all those people now that much. So they're going to delete. I consider it like that, really, because it feels like a computer when they delete people because the wage goes higher. You're gone, cut off that list, and that list too. Guys, it's not going to work. You might as well keep your low wage and keep your job at least. But it's not about that mostly. The people and companies and stuff are trying to save themselves, shatter our dreams, so to speak, by getting rid of the healthcare initiative if you're working 35 hours or less, or you're not a full-time worker. And they'll do it in several ways. One, they'll cut your check in half and use the next one until they don't have enough so they don't have to give you anything. Any healthcare provisions. So see right there, ladies and gentlemen, in this whole thing, Death King status. I'd rather have that so they pay for it, and then I could just pay my way through my life. I have my bills to pay. Now I have to pay another bill for this Obamacare. But it's not caring. It's not caring at all. I'm going to say it. It's not caring at all. He just put his name on it. He's not the one who wrote it. That's for definite truth there. And I think that's what is the victimless crime. We're all victims here. This is a victimless crime. The government, the state, the statism. We're the criminals here. We're all being treated like criminals with what this place has turned into. Terrorist threats, everything else. Of course, the first terrorist attack ever took place in America, or to America, was in New York City. By, guess what? Supposedly, it's still an open case, actually. And it was Italians. That's what they labeled it towards. But they never actually found out who it was. But once you already know that they don't even look into the fact of who it was, you now have a society that can scapegoat everybody. And they've been doing that ever since that one. But it's their own idea, right? But it's not their own idea. It's ours. It's our insecureness. It's our wanting this kind of omniscient narrator. I am my own narrator. I don't need another one. I have another narrator in my head. I have another narrator in my heart. That's it. I have another narrator of feelings, emotions, sensitivities. Do I want anybody else to narrate this? No. You know, I don't need it. I got all this. The hell else do I need to narrate this for? What? You won't have anything else to add to me. Truly you won't. And the ones who will not treat me like this. Will not treat me like I'm a criminal. It's for your own protection. But it isn't. It's not for my own protection, it's for your own protection. You're not doing it for me. You're doing it because the people in power told you to do it this way. You're doing the LAX, checks on people because the government told you to. The people in power told you to. There or anywhere. In high positions, they told you to. We didn't tell you to. And I think that's the difference. We think we're a real estate for the people in power, so it can be sold off to them. And that's what happened a long time ago when we believed that representatives in the House and the Senate will actually represent us. But they don't. Because you can't be sold off that way to be represented. You can't be. I'm sorry, but if you have a delusion to believe that your view is 100% in relation to the person over there that's a representative, did they answer their phone calls? Did they answer every single letter you wrote? Or did they ignore it and no answer, no callback? There's been a lot of that. You're not represented for if you're ignored. Just to be truly honest. Well, we can't feel bad because of that. We just got to understand that things go along. True. It doesn't mean they go along well. It doesn't mean they go along and everything turns out, fine for everybody. Because once you're not represented for, the end isn't the fact that you're not represented for. The end is, what are they representing in the first place? If they're not representing what you are, then what are they exactly representing? So who's here, everybody? Who's here? Who should I say is here? I guess the rapists and murderers are in power. That's how I see it. Guilty or innocent? Well, it doesn't really matter. I'm guilty and innocent. But at least I'm not guilty of the things that other people are. Yeesh. But I've already gotten past all this stuff. I don't know exactly where to go with it. For me, the environment, it's a problem that most people are going to make by themselves. Like I said, especially about contradictions. If you're going to be a hypocrite in contradictions, you just want to do bad, but not be seen as bad. And want to just point out the bad and contradictions towards somebody else. Because you don't want to deal with it personally and say, well, maybe I am bad. Like I said, people will accept the highly repressive society. They have in the past. Obviously, that's not going to change. They're not going to go, well, you know what? We don't want this anymore. People may have believed that they said that, but that's not what they said. They fought against it and it ended, but it was pretty much because it wasn't important. It wasn't like people were were, stampeding away from something that they truly didn't want, because they kept it there for a while. And I think that's what really ends this whole thing, is that we are repetitively cycling when the end of the cycle could be right here. Learn to, address the issue and not just refrain from asking. So I wouldn't know exactly where to end with this, because this is a hard one. This is not the easiest step to go to, and I think the best way to end it is just say the best thing that I can. It's take care, and love. And that's what I really can offer you guys out there. Guys and girls and everyone. Take care, guys. Love you all.